Old school laptops, let's talk about it. So recently I found even more like different kind of laptops, like old ones that have been abandoned because the specs are not like great at all. But also when it comes to repairing these things, it can be a freaking nightmare. But nevertheless I picked up a couple of them for fairly cheap, and I think it was even one I get for free. So this version, the Dell that you can see over here, is a working version. It's a very old, let's say i7 first generation. But there's even more. Not inside of this bag, but I got more of them. And in this video it doesn't... Okay, crap. Do that again. So in this video, that is what I wanted to talk about. Old laptops, turning them into retro portable emulation machines. Because these things are maybe like out of date, you cannot really use it with Windows 10, 11 or whatsoever is coming out. But there are still many cool things you can do with it. Besides like throwing them away, why should you do that? It's absolutely like not e-waste. For example, this E7 isn't very powerful like when it comes to emulation. Maybe not like your latest mini TV box, whatever thing, but you will be surprised what you can do with this. The same goes with this old Dell. I have been using this thing for some time for retro gaming, Windows XP for example. That's one of those cool things you can do with it. But also when you're going to slap some Panzer on it, oh boy, I can tell you, you will be surprised what you actually can play with this. So we have basically two completely different like laptops. The left one is a dual core, an old school one, and this is like an i7 first generation. But this particular thing, that is what I really like. Both of them have like the pros and cons, but let's get into the Dell first. My version is not in the best condition. I must say that my laptop battery is still working though, so that is not the problem. The main problem is like my keyboard is, oh man, it's just completely messed up. The locking mechanism is also broken off. This shift key is broken. So if you just want to sell something like that, it is unsellable, or basically nobody wants to have it. So I was thinking we can do something pretty cool with this. Because the battery it's still alive and the display itself it still works. So I was thinking what we can do with it, why not make a portable retro arcade machine of this. You can do a lot of great things with this Dell laptop. It's a dual core, it's got 4 gigs of RAM. There is no hard drive installed, but we can slap a hard drive and SSD in it. It got built-in speakers. But in the end, if you're looking at the specs, I was thinking, hey, why not installing Methode and let's play some retro games on the go. Because now we're having a device that basically have the display, we're having a controller that we're using external, and we're having some speakers. The display itself is not the highest resolution, and also it's a 15-inch if I'm saying it correctly. But I was thinking, for retro games it's more than enough. And if you're just on the go and you want to bring all your games with you, this may be a really cool way. So let's talk about the Methode and let's see what we're going to get with this when it comes to emulation performance. Okay, but this is not a tutorial, but what I wanted to tell you is like the ways we can play. We can use an external hard drive, 2.5 inch or in 3.5, they are really cheap and they're having big capacities. Another thing is we can use a thumb drive. This is a very small one from SanDisk, but you also can get yourself a bigger one. That one is maybe cheaper. And the last option what we're going to get is a CF card, because some of these devices has the option to boot from a CF card. Maybe it sounds crazy, but these are just the 3 ways, and of course you can use this thing in combination with a card reader. So this is what you can do, but there is also another way, and the reason why I will explain you. This laptop has a lot of options when it comes to audio out and other devices. So to begin with, we can have the option to use a headphone on this device, but also external speakers, and we're having 2 USB ports at the right for using the controllers. Of course, if you want to use 4 controllers, you can always use a USB hub. Over here at the left, we're going to get the Ethernet connection, the RG45. So if you want to hook it up to the internet, it is possible. And what we can try, of course, to use the display out. It would be cool, basically to clone the extra display and connect it to an external monitor. But there's no way I want to point out, because this is a portable video of course, and then we're having the input for the power supply. But with this system we have a problem. We're only having a really old school 2.0 USB port like this one. There is no 3.0, so the only option in my opinion we're going to have is using an internal hard drive. And guess what? It was already missing in the first place, so that's what we're going to do. So with the Dell Latitude, the only thing that we need to do is slide in the hard drive with the Methode firmware on it, and we're ready to go. So let's boot it up and let's see what we can do with this bad boy. If you want to use a dual boot, that is of course possible, even in combination with an external drive that we're not going to recommend doing with this device due of the old USB connection. Okay, so I replaced it. The only thing I need to do is boot it up. If you have any issues, you can always go to the configuration system. Yeah, that's it. Nevertheless, let's boot it up. Let's get some Linux Bottle Zero running on this device and let's have some fun. Oh, damn it, the battery's low. Did it charge it enough? I'm set. Let's go. I messed it up. Alright, so the system is booting up. Everything works like a charm. Just doing a quick overview of the Bottle Zero software, what you can do with it. And of course, let's test some games and let's see how far we can push this old bad boy. So in this video, I am going to use myself the Chinese controller I've got for the Super Console X. But I also can use like an Xbox 360 controller. There are a lot of the great controls you can use with Bottle Zero. So let's plug in this bad boy and let's see what we're going to get. Alright, so I'm using this for the first time, or this controller on this image. So what we need to do is configure it. So if everything goes like it should be, you're going to get this configure input. The reason why, because you need to set it all up. What you're going to get is basically this setup list. It says what kind of button you need to configure. Now we're going to have the D-pad, for example, up, down, left, right. Start, select. Now I choose A, B, X, Y. We're having the analog stick. Let's check the shoulder buttons, the buttons here, and of course set the hotkey if you want to go back to the menu. I'm pressing back for this. Press A. It will take some time, but when you're done, the controller is configured with every single emulator. The device you see over here, it's not an IPS very high definition full HD 4K display. This is just a really old school retro way. And maybe even we can disable the bezels if we want to. Not going to do that in the video, just going to leave as is. But for an old school 15-inch display, non-IPS, doesn't look that bad. So when it comes to a really old piece of technology, I'm going to tell you, and it will surprise you in many ways, because this device is capable of running a lot of stuff that I didn't even realize. What I do like about this is that we have the option to bring this thing with you. You even have the indication of the battery in the right top corner. I did review a lot of these devices, especially when it comes to Pandora's Box Pi based, but this is just a super easy way. You grab yourself an old laptop, maybe you have one laying around, you're going to do a modification of the software, or better said, you're going to slap on a new hard drive, and you're ready to go, and you have so much stuff you can add to it. The old stuff like 8-bit, 16-bit, I will show you, it will run just fine. Arcade, same story. But when it comes to the high performance stuff, PlayStation 1 and 64, this is what I wanted to see and just to check out what you're going to get. So that's what we're going to do today. Okay guys, so first a little bit of beefcake and wolfies. And this is how I feel in the morning. Just kick him in the balls. Kick him in the face, kick him in the balls. Kick him in the face, kick him in the balls. Beefcake. Beefcake! I hate these guys, you know. Go away. Okay guys, so first up, let's try some PlayStation. I'm just going to skip all the old stuff because it runs just fine. Get into the bubble! Crash, crash, crash. Oh, do shut up. But the thing is with PlayStation 1, okay, it runs on a lot of cheap Android devices nowadays. But it is in great edition. And I don't know if you can hear it on the video, but the sound of this Dell Latitude LED is very good. Of course there is no bass, but when you're cranking it up to, let's say, 100%, it's going to get a little bit too pitchy. Talking to my goat friend. Okay guys, next up, PlayStation Portable. So a lot of these Pandora's boxes and a lot of cheap stuff doesn't work at all with PlayStation Portable. So let's play without frame skip, original settings. I can already hear a minor dip.
Round one. Fight.
Ooh. So far so good.
Round 2. Fight.
Of course, like when you're looking at the Tekken 6 game, this is not the most demanding game out there. Sadly, I couldn't get God of War to work, because that will be like the ultimate test. But so far so good. Next up, let's try a different game, different system. This is a really demanding game, so I'm curious how this will work out. I'm getting my ass kicked here. The first time booting up the game, I had a lot of problems due of FPS dips, but when playing through the game, it should be working just fine. It's still running 100% perfect speed, but it is better playable than most, let's say, cheap Android boxes. Okay, so I wanted to try out a Sega Saturn game. The reason behind this system is really demanding. I know, like some other devices, it does have the option to run with low specs Sega two-dimensional games, but this is of course not like it should be. And the two-dimensional stuff it's not really demanding. So if this doesn't even run, forget about PlayStation 2, forget about Nintendo GameCube. I can say that PlayStation Portable and Sega Dreamcast is pushing this device to the limit. We just need to have some better specifications. Alright, next up, N64, Cruising USA. A game that doesn't run on a Pi, maybe now, but back in the day I tested it out. It had a lot of issues. Especially with this part. And see, even on an old school dual core, it runs like a charm. No hiccups, nothing. So if you can find this thing for dirty cheap, you can make something interesting out of it. But this bigger Dell bad boy, oh boy, this is really cool. And the reason why, because you can do even more cool things with it. It is way more powerful than dual core, of course, and it even comes with premium sound. So this thing is superior in every single way. Nevertheless, in my case, I picked this thing up for basically nothing, because I got a couple of these, like say, broken laptops. It was like, after some messing around, it seems to be like the memory was not working, so it was not booting or posting anything. But after replacing the memory for, I think it was like free, because I got it from another broken laptop, I got myself a pretty damn cool device. So let's get into it. Okay, so next up, let's remove the bottom plate. The battery, I don't know if it's dead, because yeah, the charger is not perfectly working. I can boot up the system, but it seems to be it cannot be charged, so that's something I need to change out in the future. So let's remove the screws over here, and let's remove the plastic plate. At the bottom, what we're going to get is the memory module and the hard drive. But okay, so I was surprised to see when I was opening up, nothing was in here. So what I'm guessing is the following thing. They wanted to get rid of this laptop because it has some issues with the RAM. That happens a lot, and when the RAM is like faulty, we're going to get some weird blue screens, or basically it just gets frozen in the middle of operation. And so I got myself some used memory banks, DDR3, the ones that need to be in here. In total 16 gigabytes, so we're going to have more than enough for also installing Windows if we want to. There was no hard drive. I completely understand you always remove those for maybe backupping the files, stuff like that. Or maybe they were naughty. So the next thing that we need to do with Bodhishira is downloading the image, because we're going to get a lot of different versions. Take into consideration with this, we're going to need the x64 edition. If we're going to use this on a very old one, there is even like an image for everything, including old school retro PCs. Think about the Windows XP era. So Bodhishira is a very interesting piece of software that we can use on many different platforms, as you can see over here. But okay, so the first thing that you need to do is download the image and make yourself a hard drive, USB stick, But let's talk about at first what ways you can go, because that is the interesting thing about Bodhishira and the way how you're going to use it. Okay, so what I mean with using it, there are basically 4 and more ways to do so. To begin with, we're going to use a 2.5-inch drive. What you can do basically is get yourself an SSD. Depending on what you want to install on the Bodhishira image, SSD are getting affordable, especially like the 512 gigabytes, but if you're going to get 1 tera and above that, it's going to be very expensive. So that's something you need to take consideration, or just use yourself a normal platter disk. These things are dirty cheap nowadays, so you can get yourself a 2 terabyte for not a lot of money, and you can slap a lot of files on your Bodhishira image. So that's something you just need to take consideration for yourself, which way you want to go. Then we're going to get the thumb drive. The downside to my laptop I'm using now only got the USB 2.0, so the 3.0 stick I'm owning here is not going to get the full potential and full speed, so loading times will be significant longer, and it's not something I recommend doing in this case. You can also get yourself a bigger hard drive, but a hard drive like this will not fit the laptop, so you need to have an external closure. And again, we're going to get the same problem that we cannot use it with 3.0, so we're going to get lower speed through the USB, so not convenient. Okay, nowadays we're going to get this plug and play kits. Take consideration if you're going to get yourself like an enclosure with a hard drive. Same problem, we don't have the fast speed for it. So I think the best thing is just build yourself inside the machine itself. Because using 2.0 with a USB drive, nope. So what we're going to do, we're going to use ourselves a platter disk because they're really cheap, 2 terabyte, and we're going to use, of course, the bracket that was missing with this too, because also that was missing. And we're going to slap in this hard drive. Bodhishira has been set up on the disk itself, and let's see how far we can push this i7. But before we can do that, let's do a little bit of a nerdy time, and let's talk about the specs, what I'm actually going to get with this laptop. Okay guys, so let's take a close look at the specifications. The brand is Dell, type the PP39L. The CPU is an i7 740QM that has a clock speed of 1.73 GHz, 16 GB of DDR3, monitor is 15.6 inches, and we got a resolution of 1366 by 768. Okie dokie, everything has been set up. I'm going to use myself the Xbox 360 controller because I already have been set up with my Bodhishira image. I really love this controller because it's a good compatible with many different systems. Okay, so the monitor itself, it's a normal resolution, like not full HD. It's going to be like an old school one, but it looks still very nice in combination with the sound. It's going to be freaking fantastic. I think even for this old laptop, it is an i7, the first generation, but I'm curious how far we can push it. So don't expect PlayStation 3 emulation. That is something that will not happen on old specs like this. But I think this is just a really cool, all-in-one solution. Okay, next up, let's try the Atomiswave. This system doesn't run on cheap Android boxes, so I think about Super Console stuff like that costs around $100, and we can play it without any problem on this old school laptop. Another system that runs pretty good is MAME with Killer Instinct, and Raspberry Pi 4 has a lot of issue running this, but an old school laptop has no problem whatsoever. Okay guys, so when it comes to N64, we're going to get quite a good performance, especially when you compare it with $100 game boxes from AliExpress. So I was surprised to see that N64 runs pretty damn good on this device. So basically with an old CPU like this, we're going to very quickly reaching the ceiling with this with emulation performance. But I must say, surprisingly, GameCube runs pretty good. Like, not all the games, but a lot of games run pretty good. I can really enjoy this. But sadly, when it comes to Sega Saturn, then we're going to get again a bottleneck, because this game doesn't run that great. 3-dimensional Sega Saturn games with the Yabas and Zero, you need to have quite a lot of power nowadays to run these systems. Yes, and this old CPU i7 is not powerful enough. But there is a bright side, because if you're going to play some 2-dimensional games, then we're going to get better performance. Okay guys, so next up, Sega Dreamcast. This system runs pretty damn good on this i7. I must say the performance are quite nice, and if you're going to combine it with better emulators, I think you can even upscale it a little bit than the native resolution. Okay, next up, PlayStation 2, and sadly not all the games run perfectly, and the main problem is just we don't have enough power for this. So take consideration two-dimensional games, same like with Sega Saturn, will run just okay and will have better performance. But in the end, it's going to be a mixed bag. But what is pretty damn awesome that PlayStation Portable is running very well on this laptop and looks amazing, and maybe you can even upscale it a little bit more. More demanding games like God of War will have some struggles, and I mean like you will run it on 2x resolution, but it's very demanding, and even with this i7 first generation it's not powerful enough in my opinion. You can buy like a cheap laptop from eBay or one from your thrift shop. Maybe you can get one for free if it's broken, or maybe somebody don't really uses it. Like take consideration, like with Bodasera, you can do so many cool things with it, and even the performance with like a dual core is better than your typical like Gamebox or Super Console X you're buying from AliExpress. Let me know in the comments what you think of this. I want to thank you for watching. Consider subscribing, hit that little bell, and it would be great to see you in the next video.